Good morning. This is FFSE and Co. What can we do to help you?
Good morning. My name is Ilna Rose. I would like to buy a piece of land in Klang Selangor by cash. So, can you help me with the procedures until I get the title registered under my name?
Sure, miss. We will assist you from the very first stage until the title is registered under your name. Before that, may I know the details of the land to be purchased?
All that I know, the land is a Malay reservation land that was charged by the previous owner.
Alright, noted, miss. Let's meet online for our session.
Welcome, Ms. Dina, to SFSE Advocates and Solicitors. We will now introduce ourselves. My name is Farhah Binti Rahim.
My name is Siti Suhailah binti Jamil.
My name is Haniss Soffiya binti Abdul Hamid.
My name is Tengku Sharifah Emilia binti Tengku Othman.
Let's begin our session. I will explain the preliminary step before the execution of the contract, where we will conduct an inquiry. Firstly, we will interview you in respect of your details, such as your national registration identity card and the details of the property that you are intending to buy. This is to ensure that you have capacity to be the proprietor of the land under Section 43 of the National Land Code. We will also inquire about the terms and conditions that you have negotiated with the vendor and check your agreements as well as the method of payment that you will be using to buy the land. After that, we will conduct a private land search under Section 384 of the National Land Code at the relevant land office instead of official land search under Section 385 because the results of the former would be obtained much quicker than the latter. This is to ascertain the status of the land and its current registered proprietor and to determine whether the land is subject to any restriction in interest, encumbrances, prohibitory order, caveat, forfeiture proceeding, or acquisition by the government. Next, we will conduct an insolvency search at the insolvency office. This is to ensure that you are not barred from being registered as owner of the land under Section 43 of the National Land Code. If you are a bankrupt and you participate in the transfer of land, that transfer will be deemed as fraudulent conveyance because it is made against the prohibition under Section 3, subsection 1 of the Insolvency Act. Finally, we will advise you to conduct a site inspection of the land so you can identify the land and its location before making the purchase. By doing that, you can determine whether the land is occupied by anyone and check whether the details of the land are in accordance with the details given by the vendor. This is to avoid any scam or dispute with the vendor later on in the future regarding the clarity and validity of the contract.
Hi, I will explain the preparation of the documentation.
In practice, we as the purchaser solicitor will be the one that prepare the documents.
First document is the sale and purchase agreement, which is a legally binding contract between the parties. Form 14A, which is a memorandum of transfer of ownership of the land. Preparation of Form CKST 2A and also Form CKST 502 under RPGT Act 1976. Entry and also the withdrawal of the private caveat. There are four components of a valid sale and purchase agreement. The first one is the date of agreement. The second one is the recital part, where we will lay down the details of the parties, such as the full name and also IC number, to ensure that the parties fall within the category under Section 43 of the National Land Code, where in your situation you fall under natural person and not being a minor. Later, we need to lay down the details of the property, including any encumbrances and also any restriction in interest attached to the land, where in your situation, we need to include that the land is being charged to the Maya Bank Berhad. Thirdly is the terms and conditions of the sale, where the first term is the performance of the contract, where we need to lay down the obligation by both parties, where for vendor, he shall not refuse to proceed with the sale, and also assurance in giving vacant possession at the agreed time. For the purchaser, you must pay the deposit and the agreed purchase price. We must also include the status and also the remedial steps upon the termination of the contract due to the frustration. These are the example of the frustration of contract. In the event of breach of contract, we also need to include the remedies available for the innocent party. If the default is by the vendor, the purchaser can rescind, seek damages, or seek specific performance. If the default by the purchaser, the vendor may rescind the SPA and forfeit the deposit, or he may extend the time for payment but subject to the interest charge. Last term is the miscellaneous term, which include the definition, notices, and others. Last component is the signing and attestation clause, where both parties shall sign the agreement in front of their solicitor and any qualified person must attest the agreement.
Next, after preparing all the relevant documents, I will explain on execution and attestation process. We will send the SPA to the vendor solicitor for them to vet and approve the SPA under Section 210 Subsection 1 of NLC. You will then execute the SPA Form 14A and CKHT 2A in front of us under Section 210 Subsection 2 of NLC. After that, we will send the SPA and Form 14A to the vendor solicitor for vendor's execution. However, the contract between you and Mr. Azli involve a Malay reservation land in Klang Selangor. So the execution of document shall only be attested by a land administrator under paragraph 3, 5th schedule of NLC, except for the charge instrument under paragraph 4, where in your situation, no document of charge need to be attested. Next, we move to the payment of deposit. In Lingi Plantation case, deposit by the contract where failure to perform the rest of the contract may amount to forfeiture of deposit. So after the execution of document, since you have agreed to pay 10% for the deposit, the amount that you need to pay is 25,550 ringgit. However, we will act as a stakeholder and retain 3% of the purchase price for Malaysia vendor or 7% for a non-Malaysia vendor. So we will retain the amount of 7,665 ringgit since Mr. Aziz is a Malaysia vendor. Thus, for the payment of deposit, the amount that you need to pay is 17,885 ringgit after deducting the original deposit with the retention sum. And you are also required to bring along CKHT 502 to prove to Mr. Aziz that he need to pay the retention sum. Next, we will send the SPA to the stamp office for stamping according to Stamp Act 1949. And then we will send the copy of the duly stamped SPA to the vendor solicitor. Simultaneously, we will request the vendor solicitor to submit redemption statement to us, and we will ask you to pay the balance purchase price. For your information, the balance purchase price that you need to pay is 229,950 ringgit after deducting the deposit. And then we will pay the redemption amount to the vendor's bank after receiving the issued redemption statement.
Hi, I will continue with post-contract procedure. Next is the lodgement of private caveat, which will be conducted after the payment of redemption amount to show that you have a caveatable interest over the land, as provided under Section 323 subsection 1 of NLC. Private caveat is entered using Form 19B and must be prepared together with a statutory declaration as mentioned under Section 323 subsection 2 and subsection 3, respectively, in which the ground for your caveating must be expressly stated. Then, the statutory declaration must be executed before a commissioner for oath, and you as the caveator also have to pay fees for the entry of the caveat. Once approved, the registrar will launch this caveat via endorsement on RDT. Therefore, Form 19A will be served to Mr. Azli to inform him that he will not be able to deal with the land. Simultaneously, we will receive duly stamped Form 16N, original IDT, prescribed fee and quit rent received by the vendor's bank solicitor. For submission of tax documentation for CKHT2A, a copy of the sale and purchase agreement must be attached to the form to notify the IRB of the date and price of the acquisition of the property. For CKHT 502, it must be submitted together with the retention sum that has been excluded from the deposit under Section 21B of RPGT Act. It is obligated to remit the payment to IRD within 60 days from the date of sale and purchase agreement. Duly completed Form 14A, photostat copy of IDT and 5 copies of PDS 15 will be sent to the Stamp Duty Office for the process of adjudication, which is the process of valuation of the property to determine the stamp duty payable on the transfer form. Next is the receivement of notice taksiran by Stamp Duty Office, which notifies the stamp duty payable on Form 14A. Then you have to pay the stamp duty as in accordance with Item 32 of the first schedule of the Stamp Act. Since the purchase price is 255,500, so here is the calculation of payment of stamp duty. The stamp duty to be paid is 4,110. The final process is the registration, but before that, we will conduct a final land search to make sure there are no more encumbrances attached to the land. The documents needed to be presented for registration are Form 19G for withdrawal of private caveat, Form 16N and Form 14A, fees, NRC and assessment rent. After that, the payment of the balance purchase price minus redemption amount and deposit must be made to Mr. Azli's solicitor. We will make a request to the vendor solicitor to instruct Mr. Azli to hand over the vacant possession of the land to you.
That's all from us. We hope we're able to give you the full scope procedures in purchasing a land, and we will make sure that you will get the title of the land as soon as possible. Thank you for choosing us.